You ask, how do I pray impersonally so that I don't identify with people's suffering? And you ask that because you feel drawn to pray and encourage people who are suffering, and you feel they're suffering deeply and your heart is burdened. And this is a great paradox, because what we are speaking of here is what we see in the great saints and lovers of God, which is that while they are deeply sensitive and empathetic and compassionate, feeling people's pain, they are able to enter into a transcendent love as they commune with the holy that makes them conscious of the infinite goodness which also knows the pain and yet is able to radiate a love that is healing, burdened by the grief you might feel for others, makes it more difficult to channel that healing love. So there is a way. Human beings have known it, do know it, to be entirely sensitive to the suffering of others, while supremely conscious of that divine love and presence which lifts us into some dimension of the eternal and puts us in a spiritual place, dare I say, that has an angelic presence to it, an angelic quality to it. So that with this consciousness of that greater reality of the Spirit comes a serenity, a form of detachment, which is nevertheless present to the suffering. The word impersonal doesn't fit in describing that reality. So it is a matter of understanding that you can only really help others, including in prayer, when there is a rootedness in the holy, in the divine, that makes you less of this world and less of your emotions, because you have entered another quality of conscious awareness of the vaster picture beyond the mortality and fragility of our humanity. Perhaps you have seen moments like that or felt them in someone who transcends their own suffering for the sake of helping another. There is a tranquility, serenity, self-transcendence that is evident in their presence, in their energy. We can be there in our faith in that present goodness, which draws it into focus for the situation. You cannot help others by suffering harder for them. You have to be conscious of the bigger picture and integrate that so that that suffering is no longer overwhelming to you, but a recognized reality of the human condition of this journey on earth, and one that we seek to help. You need to bring peace and healing love and patience and a practical recognition of the reality of living on this earth, so that whatever happens, that person receives the benefit of your love tinged with eternal reality. And this leads to your other question: if God already knows everyone's needs, why do I feel the urgency to intercede with prayers? Because we are engaged in God's activity. He isn't above us in a mechanistic universe pulling all the strings. That is a mistaken, very limited idea of what is meant by God. We are, in the best of senses, co-creators. As Teresa of Avila said, I am the hands and feet of Christ. We are meant to be those children of God of whom Christ is the first fruit, who are part of the incarnated healing, blessing process of the divine activity. So does that mean God's need? Does that mean God needs us? Well, perhaps it does. We are designed, created in order to participate in God's blessing of the world. And we cannot reduce the providence of God to He makes everything happen. If someone gets a terrible, fatal illness because of the nature of organic life on earth, we cannot blame the creator of life. It is part of the deal that we are mortal, that we are sickly and weak, and He is not a magician to make us all better whenever the need is there, but rather to be present to our life in a way that whatever happens, the best can be made of it. And we certainly know that even in suffering, there can be great renewal and inner growth that gives purpose to it. When the scriptures speak to us of workers are needed for the harvest, it's that kind of workers. People conscious of God who are fulfilled in that realization of what their purpose for existence is, who participate in the goodness and compassion which is expressed through the activity of Holy Spirit, both in our hearts and beyond us. Calling upon God has metaphysical effects that may align things, may focus things, may intensify the presence of grace in a situation. Certainly, when a heart that knows and loves God is open to that communion, interacts with it, something spiritually powerful occurs. And to ask for God's help is such a natural primal impulse, that it is simply part of the reality. There is a focusing that occurs on a cosmic scale, certainly a spiritual scale, that can impact circumstances, not because God does not know what's going to happen, but because God is present, fully the living God, responsive to his creatures, his beloved. There is wonder and mystery there. We cannot reduce God, put him in a box, saying that he knows everything, because that's the definition of omnipresent and all those other words. It is a living mystery that is also profoundly interconnected, interactive with its creation. It is best in such things not to try to think them through, but to go with the deepest feelings of the heart and soul, beyond any of the logical mind's ways of understanding the circumstances.